Hello, everybody. Today I am absolutely delighted to speak to a legendary and incredible supporter of Ukraine. I guess he does not need so much introduction, but I still introduce him a little bit. The name of my guest today is Jake Broe. He is fighting for truth and democracy. He produces video clips of a very high quality on a daily basis, and he has now 662,000 followers on YouTube, and the number is growing fast. I guess he will hit the million soon. I hope so. My name is Christoph Müller. I am a musician and caricature artist, and I also make videos for the same purpose, supporting Ukraine. And I would be very happy if you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel too. So thank you very much for being here today, Jake.
Thanks for having me on, Christoph. Nice to meet you.
Jake, would you also like to tell our audience here in Germany especially who you are and how it came that you are such a strong supporter of Ukraine?
My name's Jake Broe, and prior to making content about the war in Ukraine, I served on active duty in the United States Air Force. I was a nuclear missile operations officer on the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile system. That's a lot to say. I spent a lot of time underground in a launch control capsule in North Dakota, thinking about the Russians, given that they're the main geopolitical adversary of the United States, or at least they're supposed to be. So when I started making YouTube videos, this was kind of like a side hobby. I had achieved about 80,000 subscribers, and I actually separated from the Air Force officially the same week that Russia invaded Ukraine. And I made a one-off video just giving my thoughts and reactions. This was the #1 news story in the world. That video got a lot of views, so I started making more videos, and within a couple weeks, I was committed to the cause, and I made a decision that I was going to keep supporting Ukraine and making these update videos until the war was over, and that was now almost 4 years ago.
Thank you very much, Jake. I'd say that in the name of everybody who supports you. And by the way, you and all your videos keep fighting for truth, keep supporting democracy. Or what's the exact? It's not the exact wording.
Keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy. I was saying that in my videos in 2022. So as an American, I was saying that in 2022 because I was deeply disturbed by the rise of misinformation and just kind of like the destruction of our institutions and really reality, especially in American politics, on social media. Reality is being destroyed. All of our experts are being ignored for, in my opinion, charlatans and snake oil salesmen who just lie and make stuff up. And I saw this coming in 2022, even before Trump returned to office. But there is a global rise in authoritarianism, in fascism, in autocracy. And I don't want the world to be less free, less democratic. And I think Ukraine is at the forefront. I think all of these different conflicts between democracies and autocracies currently occurring, this has to do with Russia. Russia is the one feeding most of these organizations and countries, these rogue states around the world. I mean, it's cartoonish when these guys, you know, Kim Jong-un from North Korea and the Ayatollah from Iran and even Xi of China, they all get together. And I don't understand how anyone living in the West, living in a free society, would champion and praise these people and say our countries, Germany or Romania or the UK, should be more like Russia, where there is no freedom of speech, where you can just be disappeared without due process at any moment. That is what a segment of my population here in the United States wants. They want secret police, and they want the enemies of their causes or whatever they believe in to just be disappeared. So we're having a moment in the United States, and I'm a patriot, I'm a veteran, and I deeply care. And I'm hoping that we can defeat this backsliding. Well, it's not really backsliding because the United States is supposed to be the world's oldest and most successful democracy, but we're not. We are failing. But I think this is a reaction to just evolving technology. I think social media is this new tool in this new environment, and we have to adapt. The forces of democracy, we've got to find a way to communicate and reach people in a more effective way. And I don't know what that future looks like, but I do think Trump and MAGA are failing. I think Russia is failing. And I think this is the time that people who understand what's at stake in the world, we continue shouting on social media as loud as possible to try and reach and influence as many people as we can.
Exactly the same situation as I see it here in Germany. You know, me as a German, I'm especially aware of that because we had 80, 90 years ago this dictator called Adolf Hitler, who was causing the most evil on the world. Would you ever could imagine? He was causing also with his henchmen. They were committing crimes that they are so incredible. We all learned in school about that, how they were killing the Jews, and I don't want to mention it. And so we have in Germany an attitude, this may never happen again, but somehow it happens. It happens. There are people now here in Germany also. We have a party, it's called AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany. And they are rising. They are now the strongest force in Germany. They have 34%.
Well, they're being funded and helped by the Russians, and they're being funded and helped by the people who support Russia, specifically Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and these tech billionaires who, once again, are using their platforms. They're using social media to weaponize disinformation and lies, to get people to have emotional reactions, hatred towards immigrants, hatred towards the LGBT community. And you have to create a threat. If you want to consolidate power for yourself, you have to have an enemy. You then tell the people, support me, give me supreme power, and I will eliminate our enemies, the people that you hate and fear. That's what Adolf Hitler did. That's what Donald Trump is doing now with immigrants. And that's the playbook for every autocrat. Give me ultimate power. And they're the ones frightening people. They're the ones creating these stories. Obviously, there's crime in every country. There's going to be disagreements and arguments and disruptions whenever people interact with each other. That's normal in every society. But when you only highlight the bad and you completely ignore the good, yeah, you can create enemies out of any group of people, whether it's a particular religious sect or from a nationality, an ethnicity, you know, an orientation. I'm of the mindset that people are people. In every group of people, there are good ones and there are bad ones. You cannot just claim everyone in your group that you identify are good and everyone in the group you don't like are bad, and that we should use force or we should subvert the law or we should take drastic steps. But I mean, history is a cycle that just repeats and repeats because human nature remains the same. Humans more or less are the same emotionally and biologically that they were 10,000 years ago. So it's the same things that keep working when autocrats want to rise to power.
Yeah, the problem is that the history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Some clever person said, it's about, or it repeats as you want. But the problem is that the people don't have a longer memory than their own lives, and they cannot read properly the books. I mean, we have the chance to read books, and if you would be able to take the good advice from those books for yourself, then things could probably change. There is a fantastic book, by the way, which is so full of wisdom. That's the Bible. I don't know what you think about it, but I'm a person who I'm a believer. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I think that in fact he was right. There were so many things which are incredible. Wars can be ended only when you forgive your enemy. But what happens now to the Christianity with MAGA, with Trump, that they pretend to be Christians? This is not the right thing, I think.
Let me share with you something that I read on social media just yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's think about an individual that was born in the year 1900. If they were born in the year 1900, then they were a teenager during World War I, and they witnessed millions of people die. They then had to go through the Great Depression, the big economic collapse in the late 1920s, early 1930s. They then saw the rise of fascism in Italy and Spain and Germany, the breakout of World War II by the time they're 39, another tens of millions of people killed. They also saw the Spanish flu, once again, more millions of people killed. They then emerged from World War II at the age of 45. This is 1945. They then immediately go into the Cold War, the Chinese Civil War, millions killed, the rise of communism in China, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and then finally, at the age of 89, they saw the Berlin Wall come down. And 92, they saw the Soviet Union collapse. If they made it to be 100 years old, that's an incredible life. But I would argue that since World War II ended, this is the post-World War II era. This is I refer to as the Bretton Woods Agreements and the UN Charter. The last 70, 80 years since the close of World War II was actually the most peaceful time in human civilization.
Yeah.
Prior to 1945, it was constantly just kings and emperors and autocrats going to war with each other, arguing over historical borders and wanting to redraw the maps to have more wealth and resources for themselves. And this world order is breaking down, especially with the election of Donald Trump, who doesn't believe in the UN Charter and international law and respecting the sovereignty of nations and not redrawing the maps. Trump looks at Canada with lust. He wants their natural resources. He looks at Greenland, once again, wanting their natural resources. He talks about seizing the Panama. He's currently amassing naval forces in the Caribbean for a strike on Venezuela. He wants to go into regime change. So what Putin is doing in Ukraine is what every autocrat wants to do. They talk about historical borders, historical grievances, and they want to redraw the maps to have more resources for themselves.
Yeah.
What has made the post-World War II period so prosperous and so peaceful is we said we're not doing that anymore. We're not redrawing the maps. Whenever a new country is created, you cannot invade that and take it by force. We will enforce international law to prevent those kinds of wars. Now, war is still justified if it's defensive. If you need to defend yourself from an aggressive or attacking force, that's the only time war is justified. But that's not what Russia is doing. Despite claiming that they're being threatened by NATO, NATO has no interest in Russia.
They are
Nobody
lying.
was going to attack a country with 6,000 nuclear warheads. Russia's entire premise or argument is a lie. It's just about territory. It's just about resources. They want their old empire borders back. And this is just the first of many wars to come, because if Russia can do it, then why can't China do it? Why can't dictators in the Middle East or Africa do it? Why can't Trump do it? So I'm hoping that we can get control of this situation and return to respecting international law and valuing the post-World War II peace era in which we no longer try to redraw the maps.
Yeah, what you just said is it's really just the result of people, of leaders who don't have any rules in their mind, in their heart. They have just the rule of being the stronger one, and they are cruel and they have no empathy for others. Like Putin, he has no empathy at all. He's just wanting to kill, and he's wanting to destroy the others around him so that he would be the best. With all his evil, he would still be the best. If the now take Pokrovsk, now the city which the Russians now have kind of almost not invaded but destroyed, I would say. They destroy a city, and so they say they have conquered it. That's always the same. When people don't have rules, then they become cruel, and that's why I was talking about religion, about God, because the rules of being human must come from somewhere. Or I mean, people like you have the rules in your heart, or the compassion. You feel compassionate. And that's why you would never be able to do things like that on me either. But after all those long years of peace, it happened also something else. That the people became lazy and fat and didn't know we need a thrill. We have to get some tension. See all those Hollywood movies which are so cruel, or the horror movies. Everything is cruel there because the people cannot feel any other kind of kick unless there is a lot of blood or a lot of killing in those films. So in this long period of peace, it happened that people became also hard-hearted, I guess. What do you think?
I think people are instinctively generous. I think the expression that we say in America is the people who have the least are oftentimes the most generous. Uh, and it has to do with solidarity and who you view as part of your community. If you can identify with any person who's an American citizen and then have empathy and compassion for that person, you're more likely to want to provide social services and a social safety net. But if you don't identify with people because you're driven by division, whether that's your ethnicity or your race or your orientation of any kind, yeah, it's cruel. I want to broaden my scope as much as possible and just view human beings as human beings. Human beings, if they haven't been horribly mistreated or abused, like if they're not psychologically damaged, most people just want to do good in the world. They want to be valued. They want to contribute. They want to be collaborative and cooperative.
Yeah.
Humans are also competitive. Competition is great if it can drive you to self-improvement. I am competitive with my friends and my peers and even members of my family. But competition shouldn't lead to violence. I think scarcity and cruelty and feeling like you don't belong to your community or your society, that's what leads people to become depressed or jaded and then they commit crimes or they don't take care of themselves or they abuse their own family and friends. But people are people everywhere in the world. And I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I want to believe that everyone, if they're given the opportunity, will be a good person and do good in the world. That could
Yeah.
be naive, but that's the world I want to live in. And I don't want to believe the opposite is true, that everyone is out to get me, that everyone is trying to take advantage of me or screw me or deprive me of something. I think that's a dangerous fixed mindset that won't lead you to have a very good life if that's what you think of everyone else.
Yeah. I was let me tell you of my father. You sometimes mention your father, show him in your videos. I love that. By the way, the clip when you showed him with your he's an architect, right? And so my father, he was born in 1929. And so he was in the Hitler Jugend at age of 14 and had to fight in this war. And he escaped somehow then, and the war was ended. I asked my father, Daddy, how could it be that you in Germany, you were all following this guy, this Adolf Hitler, and he made so horrible crimes? And then he said, he lied to all the people. And then I was wondering, and I asked him, but why did they believe him? When somebody lies to me, usually I don't believe him. I try not to. So my father was wondering, and he did not answer. He could not answer this question.
Well, if you manufacture consent in that everyone else believes the lie, why would you as a 14-year-old boy be able to withstand that group pressure?
Absolutely.
Hitler, I read, prior to his election being elected chancellor, he wasn't allowed on the radio. The German establishment was trying to stop this guy. He had to physically go to all these rallies to speak just to be heard by anybody. And he still got like 30% of the vote in his election after coming back because he spent time in prison for some kind of failed coup. I don't know the exact details. But as soon as he was on the radio and he was broadcasting to everyone all the time, everywhere, and then everyone else, all the competition was taken off the radio. When you have complete control of the information sphere and people can't even get information that disagrees with the official narrative, yeah, you just become consumed by it. It's a form of brainwashing.
Yeah.
And I think that is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are also doing with their social media platforms. It's not a coincidence that the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump, has his own social media platform that he controls. And the wealthiest man in the world, Elon Musk, has his own social media platform that he controls. When you log on to these platforms, you're just getting software updates for your brain. When I see people scrolling on these platforms and these algorithms, they're just getting their software updates for their brain, what to think that day, what to be outraged by, what to be upset by. And that's their reality. I think this is broadly what has happened here in the United States with this last election. I think officially more than 50% of American voters now they only get their information from social media. They don't they don't watch corporate TV. They don't watch cable news. They don't read newspapers or magazines. They don't read editorials. They
Mm.
don't read books. They listen to podcasts. They're listening to Joe Rogan and Lex Fridman and all these other guys. And this is just the new information sphere. We're not going back. I know there are lots of liberals, lots of Democrats. I say that lower D, people who believe in democracy, that want gatekeepers. They want editors. They want fact checkers. They want journalists who went to college and learned ethics. But I'm sorry, that's just not the future of information sharing. And I somehow wound up in this new information bubble. But I do believe that I'm self-aware to understand what's happening. So I'm trying to be ethical. I'm trying to be a force for good. I'm trying to exist and thrive in this new medium of information exchange and learning for our democracies. Even though I'm not a journalist, like I didn't get a journalism degree. I don't have any editors. There's no producers. It's just me. And I'm trying to walk this fine line in this new information sphere where I still respect scientists. I still respect doctors. I still
Yeah.
respect people that have spent decades dedicating their lives to being an expert in something, whereas the average American doesn't value those people anymore. If you do 15 minutes of research on Facebook on vaccines, you now think you're an expert in vaccines. You did your, 15-minute YouTube video on how climate change is a hoax, and you now think you're an expert in meteorology. I these people vote, and I'm sorry, they are members of our society. To get out of this situation, we have to find a way, given the current rules and the current technology available, to find a way to reach these people, convince them. And unfortunately, human beings are driven by emotion. You can't just spit numbers and facts at people and expect to change their mind. You have to make an emotional appeal somehow. And right now, the other side, they're just way better at getting people angry. And when you get somebody angry, you can motivate them to give up, give up personal freedoms. It's staggering to me that masked men with guns who do not identify themselves are just going through residential neighborhoods, abducting women and children. That is what's happening on the streets of America today. And like 30 or 40% of Americans are okay with it. They're okay with masked men with guns who do not identify themselves
Yeah.
abducting women and children in broad daylight in residential neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane to me. That's secret
Absolutely.
police, totalitarian stuff. And it's going to get worse. You got me ranting here, but yeah, my Congress just gave ICE an additional $150 billion. And the Trump administration is building concentration camps. They're building this secret police force. And once they get all the brown people they want to get, they're going to go for all the other people they don't like, all the other people who oppose Trump and what MAGA wants.
This
We're
is all
fighting
about,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, so I didn't want to interrupt you, but it's all about information and about what the people, what somebody gets into his brain, his mind, and then the people think that is true. So this is so insane. It's always the same story. It's everything. It starts with information. That's why we are doing this here. We are making also our YouTube videos, and but other people who listen to this, who are from the other side, they say we are liars, but we say they are liars. But who is saying the truth now? If it's like a disc. I had this thing in my mind. It's like a disc. On the upper side there's the truth, on the lower side there is the lie, and people are living on this disc like on a flat earth. Let's pretend earth is flat. So, and people are living there, and the propaganda from evil guys like Putin comes all the day, every day. I totally agree with you. Putin is behind all of that. But those people, they go from the center of the truth, they go to the side, and then all of a sudden they are below it. And now, when you change the whole disc, so turn it around, then the lie is on top, and those people here, they think the other ones are below, they are the liars. So, how to orient in this mess, how to
Well,
find out.
for people who support Russia or people who support Trump, I'm not going to change their mind. What you need to do is you need to reach the people in the middle. On social media, there's something called the 99-1 rule, where 90% of people on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all these new ones like Substack and Blue Sky, 90% just scroll. They just passively take in information. They never comment. They never leave comments. They don't retweet. They don't quote. They don't engage. They just, sit on the bus or in class or whatever, and they're just scrolling on their phone, taking in information. Now, 9% of social media users, they engage. They're the super users. They're the ones liking and commenting and retweeting. They're participants. You then have the 1%. Those are the influencers. Those are the people who generate content, original posts that do go viral. So I'm not going to fight with that nine, the insane people who either support Russia or support Trump, because those people are trying to amplify themselves for their own agenda, their own reason, but they make as much noise as possible. And on social media, I spend all day, every day just blocking people. I view them as weeds in my garden. The narrative that I'm trying to construct based on real evidence and real facts appealing to experts. So I don't try to change the minds of any of those people trying to argue with me or spit Russian propaganda or misinformation at me. I just block them because I know that other 90%, they're still scrolling. I want those people to see my content. I want them to take in that information and maybe they'll change their minds. They're persuaded one day by what those 9% who are heavy users are saying and doing. But then they see my stuff and maybe they'll question it. So the battle has to take place on social media. For anyone that cares about what's happening in the world, I'm sorry, but waiting to publish your book next year or waiting to make a documentary that will be released at a film festival in next March, or like you want to write that editorial, like the old system of getting information out and influencing people is gone. And I think that what I'm doing is what more people need to be doing on
Mm.
social media to reach as many people as possible and try to steer the ship. But for you, say, when you talk about these people, oftentimes they don't even care about Russia. If you supported the Russian government and their cause, then you should be outraged by the careless use of the lives of Russian soldiers. But for people who support Russia, I never see them posting about wasted lives, failed assaults, the tragic death of these young men dying trying to advance in cities like Pokrovsk, because they don't actually care about people.
Yeah.
They care about whatever their pet cause is, and especially people in America, they view Russia as an ally. They view Russia as a weapon. They don't care about the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. They don't care about the lives of Russian soldiers. They care about defeating wokeness or, something to do with vaccines or
Hmm.
climate change is a hoax or whatever. And they think Russia's on their side. Russia has put out information telegraphing to these people. And then they become super supporters of Russia. And they just blindly retweet and post and advocate supporting Russia because they think Russia ideologically is supporting whatever cause they specifically care about. And for every one of them, it's different sometimes.
Yeah. So what you describe is really it's a downward slope, and it's very, very difficult to stop all this, to get to change direction. It almost can make you hopeless. But
Yes and no.
yeah, yeah,
Just
okay,
real quick,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if the truth is on our side, Christoph, then I think we're going to win. I think inevitably,
That's that.
if we have the facts, if we are the ones living in reality, reality has a way of destroying these narratives when they just don't happen. And we keep achieving points where I think we're almost there when terrible things happen to the Russian government and the Russian military, such as Operation Spiderweb. A third of their strategic bombers were destroyed.
Yeah,
I think to myself, this has to dispel the narrative that Russia is this superpower and that victory is inevitable and that Russia is just continuously making gains.
yeah.
And I do feel it. I feel like in the last year, the comments that I get from people who support Russia has been declining because the narrative has been destroyed that the deep state is supporting Ukraine.
Yeah.
With the election of Donald Trump, wasn't the deep state destroyed? Like, wasn't it the CIA and the deep state propping up Ukraine to try and defeat Russia and their traditional values or whatever? Like, I do think people are genuinely confused. If Biden and the deep state have been destroyed by Trump, who is propping up Ukraine and forcing them to continue this war against the Christian traditional values Russia? Like, they don't understand what's going on currently.
So um, I was so thankful for what you just said, because uh, really truth will win, and a rotten state like Russia will, in all cases, will lose. It's just impossible that this can take a very long time anymore. And but the unhappy thing is that they are so mighty that the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, has such a crazy mind and such a weird behavior, or Peter Thiel, and all the tech bros. They are really on the side now of Donald Trump, and they love money. They are supported by Putin. And Putin has got a lot of money, but thanks to Ukraine, his money is declining now. And I'm also sure that Russia will lose and Ukraine will win. So that brings me also to the point you mentioned once: the leader of the free world, that is Volodymyr Zelensky, looks like.
Yep.
Because Ukraine.
Zelensky is the leader of the free world right now. Zelensky, in my opinion, is one of the few governments in the world fighting for true democratic values. I understand Nordic countries are doing great. The Baltics get it. But yeah, I think there's this corruption and rot that has been seeping into our democracies the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's just a lot of people in really important positions who only care about money. They don't care about human life. They don't care about maintaining free societies. They just want their next mega yachts. They want to buy things. They want the status. And I'm not part of that world. I've never even visited that world. Like, I've never been in the same room as a billionaire. But when these billionaires get together, it's just a measuring contest every time. I think that's a terrible way to live your entire life. When you achieve a certain level of status, you basically get rid of your old social circle and friends, and then you make friends with people who have more money than you and are more successful than you. That then makes you feel insecure, given you're already a successful person and you're now in competition with a new league and a new league and a new league. When I see pictures of Elon Musk and Jared Kushner hanging out with Saudi princes who are billionaires, like, those are their peers. Those are their contemporaries. Chinese billionaires are their peers and contemporaries. People like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, they don't view American citizens as their peers and contemporaries. They view other billionaires around the world, and they look at what they have with envy. The fact that in a dictatorship, it's just a lot easier to do business. All you have to do is respect the dictator and give him his cut, and he can make anything happen for you in the country. There are no labor laws. There are no environmental laws. There are no consumer protection laws in autocracies. The rule is whatever the dictator wants goes. So when Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and these other billionaires see those work environments in fascist states, basically, they want that here in America. They're fine with kissing the ass of the dictator and paying their 10% in dues if they can just make all that other stuff go away. Having to lobby state governments, having to make campaign donations, having to worry about unions. Like, billionaires hate that stuff, and they want all that to go away. But all that stuff is what makes life tolerable in a free and democratic society.
Mhm.
What is the working conditions like for the average worker in Saudi Arabia or in Russia, really, or in some of these other autocracies? So
But
I think long term, what Donald Trump is doing is going to fail because nothing is going to get better for anyone.
of course not.
And his approval ratings are already high 30s, low 40s because nothing for the average American voter is improving. In that, crime is not significantly going down with all of ICE. I think crime is actually going up. Inflation is going up. unemployment is going up. Sure, the rich are getting richer and the stock market is going up, but I think for the average American, they're not going to feel or benefit that. And I think these people are going to be pretty upset once they realize they were duped by Trump and he's just another petty autocrat.
Yeah. We are talking a lot about dictatorships, and they are rising. Um, about America, that it is probably becoming a dictatorship. We haven't talked about China yet so much. How do you see China in this game?
China, I think, views itself on a different time scale than the United States because China claims 3,000 years of unified history or whatever. They've had dynasties. Family dynasties last longer than the American experiment. So I think China says America is a declining power. America's supremacy, the sun is already setting on the American economic and cultural empire. I don't think if you go back to the end of World War II, 50% of global GDP was just the United States because Germany and Japan were completely destroyed and the other industrial powers were exhausted. America just had this hegemonic advantage in which we dominated all decisions around the world. Fast forward to today, and I think the United States is now less than 25% of global GDP. We're still very significant, but as a proportion of global share, we keep declining every year, and China keeps expanding. They keep growing. So China says, where we are today doesn't really matter. The only thing that really matters is the trend. And the trend, given enough time, is the United States is shrinking in influence and power, and we are rising in influence and power. Now, the values of China, I'm sorry, these are not the values that we want spread around the world. China does not value human life in any respect. China more or less is an atheist nation, and they don't care about individuals or free speech, or it's communist, and it's not a democracy. So with China, how I understand it is they're supposed to have chairmanships that only last 10 years. And after 10 years, they're supposed to rotate. So they don't have elections, but within the Chinese Communist ruling party, there's been peaceful transfers of power. You don't just stay in office as the chairman until you die of natural causes. This chain was broken in 2012 when Xi Jinping came to power. His 10-year term, I think, was up in 2022. Hu Jintao was the Chinese premier prior to Xi, and Xi just said, I'm not leaving. When he came into office in 2012, he immediately started purging other party officials that would challenge him. He claimed it was because of corruption, but in every autocracy, everyone is corrupt. And so he's never leaving office. Xi Jinping is dictator of China for life. He's going to die at some point in office. And I argue, even within the Chinese system, this is very bad. The fact that you have consolidation of power, you don't have the peaceful transition, nobody is allowed to question, even behind closed doors within, the party network. Nobody is questioning or challenging anything Xi Jinping says or does, which is going to lead to, in my opinion, inefficiency and mismanagement and increased corruption. So the Chinese system, they're not doing great, but they are over 1 billion people, and they are an economic superpower. They are very good at manufacturing and exporting. So, is anything more specifically you want to get out of me about China?
I know. I just think that China hasn't come into the play really now. They are just sitting there and watching what's happening with Ukraine and with Russia, and when will Russia be done, and what's happening with the
China is
US.
the biggest benefiter from this
Of,
war
of course, and that's why,
because
yeah,
all of Russia's influence over the Central Asian republics is evaporating, and China is filling that power gap. As the Russians retreat from the Middle East, as the Russians retreat from Africa, China is filling that power vacuum.
yeah.
And the same is true with the European Union and the United States. The more distracted and focused we are on Ukraine, the less we're paying attention to what China is doing in Southeast Asia or Africa or South America. So China has their own agenda, and I think I think they are annoyed that the Russians are so incompetent. This was supposed to be a 3-day special military operation. The partnership between Russia and China. China has 10 times the population, 10 times the GDP, but Russia brings to the table experience, technological, rocket technology, and military prowess. So, in this partnership between these two dictatorships, China had the wealth and the people, and Russia had the expertise in warfare. And I think Xi Jinping is pretty disappointed with the performance of the Russian military. The fact that Stepping Stone won Ukraine, they couldn't get it done. 4 years into this war, and they still haven't taken Pokrovsk. They don't even control the entirety of the Donetsk Oblast. So I think China is annoyed that their military advisor, their military expert, isn't really performing. Russian technology is kind of junk. So China hasn't fought a war in over 50 years. Like there's nobody in the PLA, there's nobody in the Chinese military that has any combat experience.
That was the
None.
Korean War, or no?
Well,
Which war?
they've had border yes, they participated in the Korean War on the side of North Korea, but they had like some border disputes with India and even some border disputes with the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
That was in the 1970s.
yeah.
But it's been 50 years since anyone in the Chinese military has fired a shot, in warfare. So they want to go to war against Taiwan, and they wanted Russia's expertise, their training, their technology to help them. But really, what good has Russia been to anyone the last 4 years?
So we, okay, China is another topic which would fill much more time now. Uh, but let's get back to the to Ukraine and Europe, especially because I'm sitting here in Europe. And what would be your suggestion to the European leaders now to end the war? Let's make it brief.
Seize the $300 billion in the banks in Belgium and use it to win the war. I think all visa tourists from the Russians should be stopped. I don't think any Russians should be traveling to EU or NATO countries. Russia basically has declared war on NATO. This has been a war on NATO by Russia for 4 years. And I don't think European democracies want to admit this because they economically benefit from their business ties and tourists, and Russian money is just kind of everywhere.
Hmm.
But either Europe gives up their freedoms and they all become corrupt autocracies comparable to Hungary, or they say enough is enough. We're putting our foot down, we're defending ourselves, and we're going to make sure that Russia loses this war so that we can prevent the next one and the next one and the next one.
Absolutely. That was a big chain of mistakes why we are in this situation now. And especially also we Germans, we had a lot of mistakes on our chancellors made big mistakes with this. Budapest Memorandum was the first thing, which was maybe that was not a good idea. But then Minsk agreements, Chancellor Merkel, she and Nord Stream pipelines, this is all corrupt, and that's why these mistakes was,
The economic theory is that nations that trade together don't go to war with each other.
yeah,
So the plan for 30 years is economically integrate ourselves with the Russians so they'll not attack us. They won't invade our countries.
but this didn't work.
But Russia just viewed that as weakness. They said,
Yeah.
we have Europe dependent on us for oil and gas. We can now do whatever we want. And if they get upset with us, we'll just shut off the oil and gas. The lesson going back to Francis Fukuyama, the end of history, 1992, the belief was is that democracies and dictatorships could peacefully coexist in the world if we just economically entangled ourselves. If we opened up China and let China become the manufacturing floor for the world, we buy their exports, and if we economically integrate with the Russians and we buy their energy, then we can establish peace. Because why would they disrupt their economic monetary flows? Why would they destroy business relationships by starting unnecessary wars? And these dictators, it's the same cycle repeating for every dictator in history, every king, every emperor. As soon as they have absolute control within their own country, within their own borders, they all have the exact same idea. Wouldn't it be great if I invaded my neighbor, killed them, took their land and stuff, and then I got richer that way?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like the oligarchs of Moscow and St. Petersburg had all the money they could ever want, all the power, and it still wasn't enough for most men, honestly, who get to that level.
That's
It's just never enough.
That's the problem with money. Yeah, you never have enough. So, yeah, forget about that. And I hope that we don't have to fight really this war. To end this dictatorship, it was necessary to have the Second World War. I'm talking of the past now. And then came up only a good, intelligent leader like Winston Churchill. And I don't want that. This has to happen once again. And nobody of us wants it. But how to convince people? Thank you so much, Jake, that you fight and I fight. We try our best to convince the people to do the right things, to be on the right side of morality, and be resistant also to the evil.
We're getting there. We're making progress.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Jake, to talk to me tonight. Today, it's still there where you are, and yeah, hope to see you again another day.
Take care, Christoph.